May 29th, 2017, Hamerton Zoo Park, Cambridgeshire. A quiet Monday morning in the English countryside. 33-year-old Rosa King approaches the tiger enclosure with her cleaning supplies, ready for another routine day caring for the animals she has devoted her life to protecting. She has no idea that death is watching from the shadows. No idea that the metal slides designed to keep her safe have been left open. No idea that Sisip, 300 pounds of Malayan tiger, is free to roam where he should never be. The morning sun filters through the trees as Rosa enters what she believes is a secure area. But somewhere in the enclosure, amber eyes are tracking her every movement. Calculating, waiting, preparing for a hunt that will end 13 years of dedication in a matter of seconds. This is the story of a woman who lived for dangerous animals and died because safety failed for just one moment. The story of how routine became deadly when human error met apex predator instinct. The story of Rosa King, who gave everything to protect creatures that could never love her back. Rosa King wasn't just another zookeeper drawing a paycheck. At 33, she was Hamerton Zoo's senior carnivore keeper, a woman who had found her life's purpose in caring for some of the world's most dangerous predators. 13 years of experience with creatures that could kill her without effort. 13 years of following protocols that kept her alive while she provided for animals that most people would never dare approach. Her colleagues described her as very safe and very responsible and meticulous. Exactly the kind of person you wanted working with apex predators. Rosa understood the risks of her profession better than almost anyone. She had studied animal behavior, learned to read the subtle signs that distinguished a calm predator from an agitated one, mastered the protocols that created barriers between human vulnerability and animal instinct. But Rosa's dedication went beyond just following safety procedures. She genuinely loved the animals in her care, particularly the big cats that represented both the beauty and danger of the natural world. She supported conservation charities, advocated for animal welfare, treated her work not as a job but as a calling to protect species that faced extinction in the wild. Rosa lived and breathed animal welfare. Her mother Andrea would later say, "She gave everything to those animals. She loved them like family." That love, that complete dedication to creatures that operated on pure instinct, was both Rosa's greatest strength and her fatal vulnerability. Because on May 29th, 2017, love and dedication wouldn't be enough to overcome a single moment when safety systems failed and a Malayan tiger remembered what evolution had designed him to be. Rosa had worked with Sisip for years. She knew his personality, his routines, his behavioral patterns. To her, he wasn't just a dangerous predator, but an individual animal with his own needs and quirks. She had cleaned his enclosure hundreds of times without incident, following procedures that had kept her safe through over a decade of working with big cats. But tigers don't form emotional attachments to their keepers. They don't recognize years of care and dedication. They are solitary hunters that follow instincts programmed by millions of years of evolution, and when those instincts are triggered, no amount of human love or experience can change the outcome. Sisip was everything a Malayan tiger should be: magnificent, powerful, and absolutely lethal. An adult male weighing over 300 pounds, with muscles that could shatter bone, and jaws that could crush a human skull with casual ease. He was part of a breeding pair at Hamerton Zoo, representing one of the most endangered big cat subspecies on Earth. Malayan tigers are critically endangered, with fewer than 200 remaining in the wild. Every individual is precious to conservation efforts, which made Sisip's presence at Hamerton Zoo both a privilege and a deadly responsibility. He wasn't just an animal in a zoo. He was a living representative of a species fighting for survival. Rosa had worked with Sisip for years without incident. She understood his routines, his feeding patterns, his territorial behaviors. To the casual observer, their relationship might have seemed to prove that humans and apex predators could coexist safely. But wildlife experts knew better. There is no such thing as a tame tiger, only a tiger that hasn't yet decided to act on its fundamental nature. In the wild, Malayan tigers are solitary hunters that can bring down prey 3 times their size. They are ambush predators that can leap 30 feet horizontally and kill with a single bite to the neck that severs the spinal cord. Their orange and black stripes provide perfect camouflage in dense jungle, allowing them to approach prey undetected until it's too late to escape. Zookeeper had lived his entire life in captivity, but those instincts remained intact. Fed regular meals, provided with enrichment activities, cared for by dedicated professionals like Rosa, but still fundamentally a creature designed by evolution to hunt and kill with ruthless efficiency. On May 29, 2017, those instincts would override years of routine interactions and remind everyone what it truly means to be an apex predator. Hamerton Zoo's tiger enclosure was designed with multiple layers of safety to protect keepers like Rosa from the animals they cared for. Metal slide barriers that could instantly separate tigers from humans. Multiple gates that required specific procedures to open and close. Protocols that demanded visual confirmation of animal locations before any keeper entered a potentially dangerous area. These systems had worked flawlessly for years, allowing Rosa and her colleagues to provide proper care for their big cats while maintaining the distance that kept everyone alive. The barriers were robust, the procedures were thorough, and the staff was experienced in their operation. But systems are only as reliable as the humans who operate them, and humans are capable of making mistakes that can be fatal when apex predators are involved. On the morning of May 29, 2017, a combination of routine complacency and human error would create conditions that made Rosa's death not just possible, but inevitable. The metal slides that should have kept Zookeeper secured in his holding area were left open. The gates that should have provided additional barriers between tiger and keeper were also unsecured. Rosa entered the enclosure, believing she was protected by safety systems that had actually failed before she even began her work. How this happened remains unclear. Maybe another keeper had opened the barriers for a different task and failed to secure them afterward. Maybe Rosa herself had forgotten to check their position. Maybe mechanical failure had prevented them from closing properly. The specific cause was less important than the result. The primary safety barrier between Rosa King and 300 pounds of apex predator had been eliminated. May 29, 2017, dawned clear and mild in Cambridgeshire. The kind of pleasant English morning that made outdoor work feel like a privilege rather than a chore. Rosa arrived at Hamerton Zoo at her usual early hour, ready for another day of caring for the animals that had become her life's work. The morning routine was familiar and comforting. Check on all the carnivores. Ensure they were healthy and properly secured. Begin the maintenance tasks that would prepare the zoo for another day of visitors eager to see some of the world's most magnificent predators. The tiger enclosure needed its viewing windows cleaned, a routine task that Rosa had performed hundreds of times before. The windows allowed visitors to observe Zookeeper and his mate in their habitat, and keeping them spotless was essential for both public education and animal observation. At 9:38 a.m., Rosa entered the tiger paddock with her cleaning supplies. Bucket, squeegee, cloth. The same equipment she had used countless times for the same task. Everything appeared normal and safe. The procedures she had followed for 13 years suggested she was alone with her work. But she wasn't alone. Somewhere in the enclosure, Zookeeper was watching her movements with the focused attention that makes tigers such successful hunters. Headkeeper Catherine Adams would later theorize that the tiger had been stalking Rosa from the moment she entered, studying her patterns, calculating distances, preparing for an attack that would unfold with the precision of millions of years of evolutionary programming. For approximately 5 minutes, Rosa cleaned windows while being hunted by a predator she couldn't see. The woman who had dedicated her life to protecting big cats was unknowingly living the final minutes of that life, under the surveillance of an animal that had decided she was no longer his caretaker, but his prey. At approximately 10:45 a.m., Zookeeper made his move. What happened next unfolded with the swift brutality that makes tigers the perfect ambush predators. Rosa was apparently trying to leave the enclosure when Zookeeper struck, the timing suggesting she may have finally sensed danger, but was too late to escape it. The attack was everything that 13 years of safety protocols had been designed to prevent. 300 pounds of muscle and fang exploding from concealment, with a speed that human reflexes couldn't match. Rosa King, one of Britain's most experienced big cat handlers, faced the ultimate test of her knowledge and skill against a predator that had never forgotten what it was designed to do. Tigers kill with precision learned over millions of years of evolution. They don't waste energy on prolonged struggles or dramatic displays of power. They strike for the neck or spine, delivering crushing bites that end resistance quickly and efficiently. Seasip's attack on Rosa followed this ancient pattern with clinical accuracy. The massive cat's jaws, powerful enough to crush the bones of wild boar and deer, clamped down on Rosa's neck with hydraulic force. His 4-inch canine teeth, designed to sever spinal cords, found their target with the precision that had made tigers apex predators across Asia for millions of years. Rosa's extensive experience with big cats couldn't save her from an attack that lasted mere seconds, but caused injuries so severe that survival was impossible. The complete fracture of her cervical spinal cord, the massive lacerations to her neck and arms, the puncture wounds that told the story of a predator attack in clinical detail. There were no witnesses to Rosa's final moments, no one to document her struggle or attempt rescue. She died alone in the enclosure of an animal she had cared for like family, killed by a creature that had never understood the concept of family relationships between species. At 11 a.m., visitor Frank York approached the tiger viewing area with his family, expecting to observe one of the world's most magnificent predators in a safe, controlled environment. Instead, he became the unwitting discoverer of a tragedy that would haunt him forever. Looking through the viewing windows into the tiger enclosure, York saw Rosa's motionless body lying in the paddock. The woman who had arrived at work that morning planning another routine day of animal care had become evidence of what happens when routine fails and wild animals revert to their fundamental nature. York's immediate reaction was disbelief, then horror, then the desperate need to warn others and summon help. His calls brought zoo staff running to face their worst nightmare, one of their own dead in an enclosure with the animal she had spent years caring for. The crime scene that investigators later documented told the story of Rosa's final moments in stark detail. The large bloodstain where the attack had occurred. Her keys dropped at the site, suggesting she had been preparing to leave when Seasip struck. The wet cloth and squeegee abandoned as cleaning became a fight for survival. The upturned bucket that marked the spot where routine maintenance became predator behavior. Most chilling of all was the blood-stained paw print that provided physical evidence of Seasip's presence at the scene. The massive track of a predator that had just reminded everyone what tigers do when the artificial constraints of captivity fail to contain their true nature. The emergency response at Hamerton Zoo was swift, but ultimately futile. Armed police, paramedics, and air ambulance crews converged on the scene with the kind of massive mobilization that every zoo dreads but must always be prepared for. Zoo staff immediately implemented emergency protocols to secure Seasip and ensure no other personnel were at risk. Chunks of meat were thrown over the fence to lure the tiger away from Rosa's body and back into secure holding areas. The massive predator responded to these familiar cues, following food rewards that had been part of his routine for years. But for Rosa King, help had come far too late. The injuries inflicted by Seasip's attack were so severe that no medical intervention could have changed the outcome. She was pronounced dead at the scene, her 13-year career caring for dangerous animals ended by the very creature she had devoted herself to protecting. The investigation that followed would reveal the full scope of the tragedy. The metal slides that had been left open, eliminating the primary safety barrier between keeper and predator. The series of human errors and system failures that had created conditions for a fatal attack. The reality that one of Britain's most experienced big cat handlers had been killed, because safety protocols had failed at the crucial moment. The investigation into Rosa King's death was exhaustive and heartbreaking. Police, health and safety experts, and zoo officials working to understand how systems designed to prevent exactly this kind of tragedy had failed so completely. The findings painted a picture of an accident that was both preventable and devastating. The metal slide barriers that should have kept Sisip secured in his holding area had been left open, though exactly how this happened was never definitively determined. Rosa had entered the tiger paddock believing she was protected by safety systems that had actually failed before she began her work. Contributing factors included the demanding schedule that had zoo staff working 6 days a week, up to 45 hours during busy summer months. Rosa herself had been helping with night feeds for a sick serval kitten, adding to her workload and potentially affecting her alertness during routine tasks. Wildlife expert Elizabeth Yeomans provided insight into how such accidents occur. Sometimes when a person has completed a task many times before, you look and see what you think you should see. Rosa's extensive experience with the enclosure may have created a false sense of security that prevented her from detecting the safety failure that would cost her life. The investigation also revealed broader concerns about safety culture at Hamerton Zoo. Zoological consultant Douglas Richardson criticized what he called a lax attitude to safety and protocols that were not particularly thorough for such dangerous work. After 6 days of evidence and 2 hours of jury deliberation, Rosa's death was ruled accidental. The coroner concluded that she had died because she entered the tiger enclosure without recognizing that safety barriers were not properly secured, a moment of human error that proved fatal when apex predators were involved. Rosa King's death sent shockwaves through the British zoo community and beyond. Here was an experienced professional, someone who understood the risks and followed safety protocols, killed by an animal she had worked with for years without incident. If it could happen to Rosa, it could happen to anyone working with dangerous predators. Hamerton Zoo implemented immediate safety improvements following the tragedy. Enhanced communication systems requiring big cat keepers to maintain contact with colleagues during dangerous tasks, revised protocols for entering enclosures, additional training for all staff working with apex predators. But perhaps the most significant decision involved Sisip himself. Unlike many cases where animals that kill humans are euthanized, the tiger was allowed to continue living at Hamerton Zoo. Officials determined that Rosa's death was the result of human error rather than aggressive behavior by the animal, and Sisip should not be punished for acting according to his nature. The decision reflected Rosa's own beliefs about animal welfare. Her family and colleagues knew she would never have wanted Sisip to be destroyed for doing what tigers do when safety systems fail. Her dedication to protecting big cats extended even to the animal that had killed her. Industry-wide changes followed Rosa's death, including enhanced safety protocols at zoos throughout Britain and beyond, multiple verification systems for animal containment, improved communication procedures, additional safeguards designed to prevent human error from creating fatal encounters between keepers and apex predators. Rosa King died doing what she loved, killed by an animal she had cared for with genuine dedication. The irony was cruel, but not uncommon in the world of wildlife conservation. The people who care most deeply about dangerous animals often face the greatest risks from the creatures they are trying to protect. Her death revealed the fundamental tension between human love for wild animals and the reality that truly wild animals remain dangerous, regardless of how much care and affection they receive. Rosa's genuine dedication to Sisip couldn't change what millions of years of evolution had created. A perfect predator that would always be governed by instinct rather than emotion. The tragedy wasn't that Sisip attacked Rosa. The tragedy was that a single moment of system failure had put them in a situation where such an attack became possible. The metal slides that should have kept them separated had failed, and in the world of big cat handling, such failures are often fatal. Sound of wind through trees, distant animal calls, then fading to respectful silence. On May 29, 2017, Rosa King entered a tiger enclosure for the last time. She went in as Hamerton Zoo's most experienced carnivore keeper, following routines that had kept her safe for 13 years. She stayed as prey for a predator that had never forgotten what it was born to be. Her death changed everything about how British zoos approach big cat safety, leading to enhanced protocols and improved communication systems designed to prevent another Rosa King from dying because of a moment when safety failed. But the fundamental risk remains unchanged. Working with apex predators will always be dangerous, no matter how much we love them, no matter how well we think we understand them, no matter how carefully we design our safety systems. Rosa King's legacy lives on in the improved safety measures that protect other keepers, in the conservation work that continues at Hamerton Zoo, and in the memory of a woman who gave her life to protecting some of the world's most magnificent and dangerous creatures. The tigers she loved remember nothing of her sacrifice, but those who knew Rosa King will never forget the keeper who died doing what she had always done, caring for predators that could never love her back in service to species that needed protection more than they needed to be safe. Wild animals remain wild, even in captivity. Even Sisip, who had lived his entire life in human care, remained fundamentally what evolution had created. And on one terrible morning in Cambridgeshire, that fundamental nature reminded everyone what it truly cost to love creatures that can never be tamed.